For this worksheet, I have a few different pencils, an HB, a 2B, a 4B, and a 6B. I've also got a blending stump. And if you don't have a blending stump, you could also use a Q-tip, or you could use your finger or a tissue, or you don't technically have to smooth it out and make everything smooth, and I can show you what that looks like too. So this is learning how to control the different values that you can make with different pencils. So right here, I'm going to start with the 6B pencil, which is the darkest pencil that I use in my Art 1 class, but you can find higher B pencils that'll make darker marks, like a 9B or a 12B even, I've seen. But the darkest one that we have in our Art 1 class is a 6B pencil. So I'm going to start over here, and I'm just going to color with as much pressure as I can use. I'm not going to break the pencil, but I'm using a pretty fair amount of pressure. And I'm going to color this triangle. This is going to be the darkest, and then this is going to be the lightest. I'm leaving this triangle white. That way we can kind of compare the amount of contrast that there is from one triangle to the next. So this is going to be our strongest amount of contrast. All right, then I'm going to use, I think I'm going to continue using my 6B. I'm just not going to press quite as hard. And if you've got kind of a heavy touch, then you might want to use the 4B here. Now I think this is probably too big of a jump between here and here, and I might have a hard time finding 3 more values getting lighter. I'm going to go over this just a little bit more to bring this value just a little bit closer to that one. Okay, I'm going to switch to the 4B pencil now for this triangle. And I'm still going to press pretty lightly. I see that these values are pretty close. I'm going to go over this one more time. I'm using the 4B just to bring it more in between these two. And if you need to, you can always erase back into a value to make it lighter. So now I'm going to move into my 2B, and I'm going to give it a pretty light touch also. You can have a scrap piece of paper nearby. If you're getting pencil marks here and you're trying to keep it nice and smooth because you don't have a blending stump or a Q-tip, if you color pretty hard on a scrap piece of paper so that you get this flat tip on your pencil, that helps a little bit. Now I'm going to use my HB pencil, and I'm going to go ahead and get that flat side of the pencil over here before I even start. This is my lightest value, so I'm going to color it as lightly as I can. All right, so you can see there's a nice step of gradation, just getting a little bit darker as it moves towards the left. You can also compare the contrast between this triangle and this triangle. For this area, we're going to make a gradation that travels from dark to light smoothly. This is hard to do for beginners without seeing where it starts moving from darker to light. You want to avoid having these little blocky shapes where you can tell when you switched the pencil or changed up your pressure. I'm going to start again with the 6B, and over here I'm going to press as hard as I can. And as I move to the right, I'm going to gradually apply less pressure. I'm also keeping an eye above at the triangle's value above where I'm working to kind of keep as a guideline for where I should be by the time I get to where that by the time I get to where that triangle is. That's about the value this should be. So I need to go back into this area over here and darken this up some. If you see an area where you have a line where it's changing too quickly from dark to light, you can just kind of go over that area a little bit at a time until that line disappears and it becomes more of a gradation. I'm going to switch to a 4B pencil now. I found that I was able to get a light enough value continuing with my 4B all over to the right hand side. But if you have a stronger touch, you might want to use the HB over here. Now that I'm done, I can go back and look and see, like, do I need to make this area darker? And I feel like I do. I need to bring in some darker value here and then have it gradually move over to the right some more. Something else to think about when you're working is that whatever surface that you have underneath your paper, if it has any kind of a texture, that's probably going to show up on your paper. So that's something to be aware of. While I'm shading, I'm very aware of the way my pencil feels and whether I'm using a flat edge or I'm using the pointed edge. If I need to come back in and fill in a part, I might rotate my pencil a little bit so I get the pointed area of the pencil instead of the flat edge where I've been coloring. And then when I come back over here, I'll flip it back around and use the flat side. Now I'm going to start working on making these forms look three-dimensional through shading. So first we have to picture where's the light source coming from. The light is coming from the top left. So that means the top area is going to be the lightest, and then the left area is going to be the lightest and gradually get darker. So for something like a cylinder, this top portion would be shaded very, very lightly, if at all. I'm using a 2B, and again, if you naturally have a harder pressure when you draw, you're probably gonna go lighter in pencil, so like an HB would probably be better. And then over here, you can shade in the direction of the volume this way, how it curves. You can shade up and down. Just be careful. I'm trying to keep pencil lines out of this one. Later, we're going to go into hatching and cross-hatching, and then we'll want to show our lines. And we'll talk about that in a minute or at a later time. So I'm still using the 2B. And then as I get over here, I'm gonna switch to the 4B. It's gonna start getting a little bit darker as we're moving over to the right. I'm gonna be really careful not to go into that ellipse on the top though, because that needs to stay light. And that core shadow is going to be right in the middle of here. This area is going to pick up some reflective light. So I'm going to keep this shaded light over here with the core shadow being right around the middle. So now I'm going to switch to the 6B and I'm going to go in and get the darkest shadows in. Now I'm going to try to imagine where the shadow would go. And the cast shadow is going to be a little bit darker. It'll come right up to where you see some of the reflecting light on the bottom too. Some shadows will also get lighter as they move away from the form. You can probably take the most artistic license when you're doing cast shadows. These are things that you can change a little bit to suit your needs for the composition, and most people won't know the difference. So I could make it go this direction, I could make it go this direction based on compositionally what I'm trying to do. All right, we're going to follow the same process for this cube. I'm using an HB on the top, just very, very lightly. This is going to be my darkest side, and this is just going to be a little bit darker than this side. And then hopefully we're familiar with the sphere by now, but we're going to get a little bit more practice time on that. So I'm going to start with the HB. I'm going to move to the 2B. And I'm going to start moving in with the 4B into the core shadow. And then the darkest part of the core shadow should be with your 6B. For the cylinder, it might be getting some shadow on the very top. It depends on exactly where that light source is placed. And then have its highlight right there. And then as it moves away from the light, it will get darker as it goes down towards the bottom of the cylinder. And then the very bottom will have a little bit of reflective light from whatever surface that it's sitting on. I'm going to use the 4B pencil now. And then the 6B pencil for the darkest area of the core shadow. And then I'm going to start with the cone and work with the 2B first, leaving the left side pretty much untouched. Now I'm going to move into the 4B pencil. And I'm going to use the 6B for that core shadow. And that's how to blend gradients and make and use shadows to create the illusion of 3D form.